Okay, if I can have your attention, please. We're going to move right on into today's driver availability. First of all, on behalf of Talladega Superspeedway, welcome to the race weekend here. We've got a pair of races, obviously the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series and the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series on hand here this weekend at Talladega. First up from our driver media availability, we're going to call up David Ragan to come up. And David drives the number 34 safercar.gov Ford for Front Row Motorsports. And David, if I'm not mistaken, last time I was in this media center, I was talking to you.
Yeah.
And that's back in the spring. And certainly David won that race. Very exciting finish for David. And certainly you've shown that you know how to get around these restrictor plate races. Winning at Daytona a couple of summers ago. And congratulations, by the way. This week, David renewed his contract for 2014 with Front Row Motorsports. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And maybe talk a little bit about that. You know where you'll be racing next year, and certainly that race team continues to make strides, continues to improve. And maybe just talk a little bit about that and how the win here back in the spring get you in a good frame of mind for Sunday's race.
Thank you, Kerry, and thank you guys for having us in this morning. Yeah, the Talladega races are always special. You know, I'm a NASCAR fan at heart. I enjoy this style of racing. I enjoy coming here and being a part of the show. I'm as big a fan as anyone, so I'll be sitting back watching the truck race on Saturday, and certainly having fun getting ready for the race on Sunday. But yeah, we're excited to have that kind of in our back pocket. David Gillen and myself coming back to Front Row Motorsports next year. You know, it's so important to start as early as you can prepping for the 2014 season. I know a lot of the guys in the shops are already disassembling cars, getting them ready for next season. I know some of the NASCAR rule meetings that have been taking place, and hopefully get some of those rule changes out as soon as possible. And as soon as this race is over, I know our speedway cars will get stripped down and get ready for Daytona. So that process starts very, very quick, and the sooner that we can get our driver agreements done, our teams can go ahead and start working on our sponsorship agreements and other partners that we have with our team and our manufacturers. So in order to be competitive right out of the gate in 2014, you know, in any year, you need to start working on it as soon as possible. So we were glad to get that done. As you mentioned, that we have gotten a lot better performance-wise over the last year and a half. My time at Front Row Motorsports, it's a smaller team with a smaller budget compared to some of our counterparts, but we've given a lot of effort and a lot of hard work, and we've made a lot of gains. So hopefully we can keep the momentum going this off season and certainly into next year, and continue to have a good story to tell.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you brought the same race car back here that you won with in the spring, and so that car knows where Victory Lane is. So
yeah, it does. I've been fortunate to drive some good race cars here at the speedways, and certainly you have to have a car with just some speed. Handling doesn't come into play a whole lot, and you'll hear on scanner chatter and different drivers and crew chiefs talking about the speed in your race car. Obviously, you know, the tires in the car could stand to go a lot faster at these large racetracks, but with the restrictor plates, trying to keep them under 200 miles an hour, it's all about getting that speed, being able to draft well, and so you know, you have to work on your engine package, and then obviously, you know, what I do behind the wheel is important, but you can throw the handling out, and if we have a car that has some speed, that's able to draft well, that doesn't lose the draft, that handles well, you know, in the middle, 3 wide or 4 wide, we'll have a shot to win if we can just be there at the end. 500 miles is a long race here, so hopefully we can just be in contention with a handful of laps to go, and then we'll see what happens.
Thank you, David. We'll take questions. We'll start off with Ed Hinton.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com, kind of to your left over here, David. We asked you in the spring when you won here if that win might attract more resources for your team. Can you say directly that the win there has translated to better preparation here, or are you can you say you're better prepared than you were in the spring, or as prepared, or how would you put that?
You know, I think that I'm a little smarter, you know, coming into this race versus the spring race. And, you know, from a monetary standpoint, financially, we're a little stronger. Obviously, safercar.gov is an initiative, a safety initiative that the Department of Transportation and CSX aligned to promote safer vehicles. So having a sponsor on our race car is important. You know, this deal, you know, had been in the works for a long time, and they're going to be on our car again later this year. But, you know, small deals like that, they go a long way with a team like Front Row Motorsports and its growth. We had Farm Rich products on our Ford that spring in the May race, and it was a one-race deal, and I think we talked some about it after the win. And they agreed to come back for a primary for another race this season, and have tentatively agreed for some races next year. So, you know, it's certainly jump-started a few conversations, made some of our current partnerships stronger. So yes, the win, we're still reaping some benefits from it. But after they drop the green flag on Sunday, we'll no longer be a past. I guess we'll always be a past champion, but not the defending race winner. So we need to go and show that it wasn't a fluke, and be able to lead some laps and have a shot at another good finish.
And also, considering the roulette wheel that this place is, what would you consider the chances that you and David could hook up again? I mean, going 500 miles like that, would you consider that that was a once in a blue moon kind of thing, or would you think the chances are decent that y'all could hook up again like that?
I think the chances aren't in our favor. You never know what may happen, but I don't think the chances for that perfect storm happening 2 consecutive races is probably not realistic. But the chances of us both having a good day are realistic, and you just never know. You have to control the things that you can control, and if I can do that, if David can do that with his team, we may be in that same situation again, but we're certainly not counting on any situation like that to just come out of thin air late in a race.
And one more little detail. I take it y'all do still place more emphasis on the plate races. You put more resources into the plate races you do others.
Well, we feel like we're at more of a level playing field when the draft is considered, and everyone's in that same pack. And we put more emphasis on the short tracks and the road courses where we can be more competitive as a team. The tracks that we struggle at are the mile-and-a-half tracks, where it takes a lot of resources to figure out your aero platform and how you're riding on your bump stops, and it takes a lot of research and design to kind of trick the system, maybe the set of rules that NASCAR has. If you can figure out how to not necessarily beat the rules, but how to use the rules to your advantage, and that requires a lot of money, a lot of testing, a lot of people, and that's something where we fall a little short at. But you get to a speedway, you get to Martinsville next week, where you go back to just the mechanical things that we all grew up racing. It's a little simpler, and therefore some of our best finishes this year have been at Bristol, Richmond, obviously the speedways and the road courses.
Thank you.
Let's go to Alan, Woody, and then Lee. Go ahead, Alan.
Alan Cavana, NASCAR.com. Kind of on that point, these plate races bring a lot more people into contention, a lot more drivers than a normal week. As someone who's not in the chase, do you think about that and your aggression in maybe going for a win, and what effect it could have on the guys in the playoff?
Yeah, I think the folks that are in the chase have to be a little bit more conservative, because they've got to get through this week, without a 30th place finish, without a DNF. But the guys that aren't in the chase, we can be a little bit more aggressive behind the wheel. Our crew chiefs, our team engineers can take a few more chances on pit road, maybe stretching fuel mileage, or not taking any tires that last pit stop. So yes, we can be a little bit more aggressive, but if you look at those 3 or 4 guys that are battling for the championship, their track record at Talladega is all very, very good. So I think that what we've learned with the Gen 6 car is you can't be so conservative throughout the day and just expect an easy move toward the front in the closing laps. So you've got to make a commitment to get to the front as soon as you can, and I think therefore you'll see some harder racing throughout the day in trying to keep that track position, because you just can't improve your position as quick as you could 4 or 5 years ago. So you know, to answer your question, yeah, we can be a little bit more aggressive, but we still have some things to lose. You know, everyone's racing for something, whether it be, you know, that 14th place at, I was going to say 13th, but 14th place in points, you know, the kind of the best of the rest. You know, we're racing for a points position, top 25 drivers or top 30 and owners. So we all have a lot to lose, but we can be a little bit more aggressive.
Do you think about it if you're around those 3 or 4?
Yeah, you think about it a little. You want to be conscious. You certainly don't want to be that guy that makes a mistake and ruins their chances for a championship. But at the same time, one race isn't going to make or break their championship. You know, you can look at other races or other performances that they've had and kind of get over it, I guess. But yeah, you do put that into consideration with how aggressive you are when you see those guys, and I'm sure our spotters will do the same thing, and we try to give them a little bit of consideration on pit road. You know, if they're pitting around us, you know, we maybe let them make the first move, and then we'll kind of you know, go afterwards. So yeah, you do pay attention to those top 2 or 3 guys.
Go to Woody, Lee, and then to Nate. Go ahead, Woody.
Woody Kane, Motor Racing Network. Over to your right, David. You mentioned the Gen 6 car a little bit ago and then changing the cars for next year. There's already been some testing for 2014. I'm curious at this stage of the season, what are some of the things that you'd like to see with the car to make it better for next year? What specific things do you think can be done with it?
Well, I certainly, I don't really know all the questions, much less the answers. The first thing, you have to know the questions to figure out what to do. But I was kind of out of touch this week. I've been down in Georgia all week, so I don't know what was tested at the test on Charlotte. I think a representative from our team was there to kind of hang out. But you know, the biggest, and I wouldn't even call it an issue, because I think the racing that we've had at the mile and a halfs have been really good this year. We've seen a lot of track records. These cars are certainly safer. So the Gen 6 car has been everything and more of what we wanted it to be as an industry. But if we could figure out how to tweak the mile and a half racing where the cars aren't as aero dependent, where you can catch a car and pass them with ease or move around, I think that's the biggest thing. I think that the teams, NASCAR and Goodyear, can get in a little bit better circle and communicate a little better, so we don't have, you know, the issues like we did at Kansas with the temperature and the tires reacting the way they did. So I think that if we can improve a few small issues like that, I think that it would be very, very good. But the product that we have is extremely great. It's better than what we all expected. I mean, the first year for the Generation 6 car has exceeded a lot of expectations. A lot of speed, track records, a lot of passes, a lot of racing. So if we can work on that mile and a half package, and maybe it requires a different package at all the tracks that are 1.5 miles or larger versus the short tracks. I don't know what that is, but I do know that with some testing and putting everyone's thoughts together, I'm sure they can come up with something.
Let's go to Lee Spencer, Nate Ryan, Dustin Long.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. They were asking the question earlier about the chase and how it changes the tempo of the race, but given you were talking more about the Gen 6 car, you know, the type of strategy where guys have hung at the back and then waited till the end, why is it that they can't make that transition, you know, going from the back to the front as they have in the past? I mean, we've seen guys just get completely hung out and then have to, you know, change strategy, try to get a lap back and whatever. But what is it about the car, the handling, et cetera?
You know, the cars are fast in the draft. You'll probably see some 200-mile-an-hour average speeds today in practice, and so I think that's one of the factors that as the speeds increase in the draft, handling does come into play a little bit more, but it's harder to ride in the back and stay on the back of the pack, so to speak. You know, in years past, you could ride at half throttle and you wouldn't lose the draft. And so now what we've learned with the Generation 6 car, and I don't know if it's the aero package or if it's the rule with our intakes that allow the air to our radiators where we can't run any tape, but you can't ride that last car in the pack is very, very subject to lose the draft. And you've seen some very, very strong cars. I think Denny Hamlin, I recall, or there was a couple of the faster cars in the spring lost the draft. And you can't be that last car, and so you often see the guys that do take that strategy and ride in the towards the back of the pack. They're all fighting. No one wants to be the very last car. So I think that creates a little bit of an issue. But the cars, you can't tandem up anymore because of the water temperature issues that you'll have. So you can't make efficient passes very, very quick. Obviously, the track's in great shape here, so we can run 3 and 4 wide. And sometimes there's just no room on the racetrack. Even though if you have a great run or if you have some momentum, you can't do anything with it because there's someone directly in your path. So I think a combination of 2 or 3 of those things just prevents guys from being that conservative all day long. And then you've had some guys, drivers, change their attitude over the last couple of years. I've been wrecked running in the top 5, and I've been wrecked running 35th. So I think we all have the attitude where we're just going to go out and race and just try to stay up front as much as we can.
And Woody on the Gen 6 asked you, about changes. Can you see a tapered spacer on the car and what that would be like, how that would react, how these cars you believe would react with a tapered spacer on them?
Well, I think that if you put a tapered spacer on the cars, it would certainly knock some horsepower out. I don't know an exact number, but you would have to imagine, 100 horsepower or something like that. And so if you do that, then we would probably be flat out at a lot of these tracks where we wouldn't have to lift off the throttle. So if you do that, I think you'd need to compensate and maybe take a little bit of downforce away at the same time. And I don't know if you do that in splitter height, rear spoiler, but if you take some horsepower away, you definitely need to take a little downforce away. But I've been a big advocate for racing is better, in my opinion, when the cars are easier to drive. If the cars are hard to drive, we're on pins and needles. We don't take as many chances, and we're just trying to race our race. We're not worried about racing others. And that's why you look at some of these tracks where you can move around. The tire combination is right. The cars are handling well. You can move from the top of the racetrack to the bottom of the racetrack. That's when the racing's the best. And so I think in my opinion, I would like to see the cars lose a little bit of horsepower, lose a little bit of downforce, slow them down just a hair, and that would make for, in my opinion, a little bit better racing. But there's so many different set of circumstances because every racetrack's a little different, every tire combination's a little different. The surface that we have at these racetracks, they're all a little different. So you're not going to have one small fix for every issue that you may have. So you're going to have some that are track specific or something like that.
Okay, we backing up against time here. We'll take 2 more questions. Nate and Dustin.
Nate Ryan, USA. David, I was going to ask what Lee did about why guys can't hang back as much anymore. I guess to follow up on that, though, has it changed the nature of the mentality you have to have behind the wheel? I know that like a few years ago it used to be really intense. Guys' eyeballs hurt after races because they had to worry about so much. But I assume that kind of lessened during the tandem era where you could fall back and not have as much penalty. Was it more intense, I guess, in the spring? Would you expect that Sunday as well?
Yeah, I would expect it again. I mean, obviously the temperatures are going to be cool here. The track's going to have a lot of grip. Every race that we come back with a different generation car, you learn more and more every single time. And even though we may be bringing the same car back, we got a little different strategy for front springs and front shocks and how we're going to, get the ride quality in the car that I want. So I think every car will be a little bit, or should be a little bit easier to drive. The drivers are going to be a little bit more comfortable. We know a little bit on how they're going to react. We've got a race behind us. Our engineers, our crew chiefs, they go through a pretty long list of post-race issues, and they try to address them. So, yeah, I think the race will be very, very tight. I think that you're going to see a lot of guys, they're not going to be passive and just cruise around. I know that we're going to have a little different strategy because you learn something every single time. Caution histories play into how you're going to race the race. So you look at all that stuff, but I would say that the race will be pretty tight the whole race, and that you're not going to have a lot of guys just taking it easy, so to speak, until the end.
Final question, Dustin.
Dustin Long, Motor Racing Network. David, 6 of the last 7 years at this track, there's been some kind of multi-car crash within the last 7 laps of the scheduled finish. One, are you almost resigned that it's just a lottery? And 2, why can't you guys get through the end of the race without crashing?
Well, I know that exactly the reason is because your intensity gets a little higher at the end. You know, the finish is in the closing laps. You're frustrated. Your anxiety's probably getting at you. I mean, it's a combination of things, but the bottom line, it's go time. When it's 10 to go, you can hear the excitement in your spotter's voice, your crew chief's voice. 9 to go, 7 to go. There's less give and take. You know, on lap 100, I'm going to give a guy an inch or two, or I'm going to trail the brake just to be on the conservative side. But in the closing laps, all you can think about is setting yourself up for the win and when they throw the white flag. So you're going to be aggressive, and when everyone starts getting aggressive, there's less give and takes, and accidents happen. So, yeah, I looked over some caution history this morning, and I think 100% of the time in the last 7 or 8 races, there's going to be a caution in the last 10 laps. And I'm not a big betting guy, but I would bet for it again this week, and hopefully you can be on the right side. You can be in front of the accident or enough behind it where you can clear it. So you just don't ever know where it's going to be and how it's going to happen.
David, thank you for coming in. Good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks.